Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I'm joined by the amazing Tom Schraeder. Tom, how you doing today?
Great, great. Happy to be here with you.
Oh, dude, I'm so excited to have you here. So, for those of you that don't know, Tom is a composer. He does scores. One for one of my favorite films of all time, The Dark and the Wicked, as well as Vicious, which you can stream now on Paramount Plus at the time of viewing. So, how long have you been doing scores for?
About on and off for about feature film for about 7 years. But I've been doing a lot of short films and projects with friends for since about 2010.
That's
So
incredible.
yeah, the years are adding up.
Yeah, and we've talked about at the time of recording. Obviously, I haven't seen Vicious yet, um, but obviously, like I said, The Dark and the Wicked. This is something that you and I have been trying to do for a long time. Schedule conflicts and things like that. I reached out to you a while ago, and man, I'm finally able to talk to you about a movie that I genuinely love so damn much. So, what was your inspiration, especially with The Dark and the Wicked, for that score?
Good question. Brian and I, we when we first started talking about the score, Brian's a huge music fan.
Mhm.
And so it's really fun working with him. When we first started talking about it, the idea was to create a different score than traditional horror scores often, will have. So the idea was to have the audience member feel the anxiety, essentially, the mourning that this family has been in. So the movie is filled in the same with music in the same way as someone who is suffering, mourning a loved one. Uh,
Wow.
so that was the same thing, and we kept saying it was music for the chest rather than the ears.
Sure. Well, we've often talked about how a score can really make or break a film. Like there are certain times where score and sound design amplify or embarrass a film. And especially with The Dark and the Wicked, like I said, this is something that creepiness, that isolation, and your score really brings that to the table. So when you're creating a score, is it all done post or do you ever visit the set? I know you're friends with Brian and stuff like that. So did you ever visit the set to kind of get like an idea of what you were wanting to go with?
I did. I did. I visited the farm, Brian's family farm, and that actually inspired a lot of the film. The sounds on, the creakiness, the how rustic the farm felt. There's a vibe there in general, and Tristan and Brian really captured that vibe visually that I knew I needed to stay authentic to the sound. So we went for a lot of scrapes and a lot of metallic sounding, but a lot of wood sounding kind of
Oh.
drones and tones to really paint the film and the world that um, Brian created.
And a lot of movies they use the score also as a form of a jump scare. You don't get that throughout The Dark and the Wicked. The score to this is just enhancing that tension and the anxiety. And it almost as you're watching this film, you're getting to the point of please make me laugh. Please jump scare me. Please give me something to just break this tension. And you guys are like, nah, deal with it.
I love that you said that. And first of all, I love how much you love the film. I'm a fan of your site and
Thank you.
hearing it every time, I'm like, oh, thank you, Ken. Because the film it's such an important part of my life, of my career. That film, there was so much intention with that to really give the listener something where they want to even for example, I just watched it finally with the crew, the cast and crew, at Lincoln Center in New York. And that was the first time we had all been together because it was released during the pandemic, as you know.
Yes.
Being able to watch the film for the first time and being this far away from it, I did to myself what Brian and I were intending. I wanted to turn the score off at times.
Yeah.
Mentally, I'm like, oh, give me a break. Let me catch a
Yes.
breath. And that was it was cool to watch, this film that has been, it's past 5 years now since its release. So it was cool to watch it almost as a fan. I forgot some of the jump scares, the subtleties, and I had to catch myself. I'm like, wow, I would have done something different musically here. But then I brought myself back to remember that's what we intended. So I'm glad that you caught that as well.
Oh yeah. Well, because a lot of, and like you said, there's a lot of times where it doesn't matter if the project's perfect. You know, you go back and you rewatch it, and the maturation you have between 5 years, especially, what could I
Mm.
have done different? Because we're always, as creators, whether you're doing score, costume design, acting, directing, writing, podcasting, you're always hoping that your next episode, your next movie, your next soundtrack is better than the one before it. So you're always growing as an artist. So it is sometimes you go back and you watch it again through a critical lens. 5 years later, maybe I would have done this, maybe I would have tweaked this. But if you could go back, you probably wouldn't, because the film wouldn't be what it is today had you done things different. And um, I mean, like, I'm not, this isn't lip service. After I'd watched the movie for the first time, I reached out to fucking everybody involved. Like, hey, I want to talk to you about this, man. Like,
Oh,
this
that's great.
movie, it blew me away. Like, I tell people, I always thought I was, 39 years old. At the time I had watched it, I was 34. I'm desensitized to horror. It doesn't do anything to me anymore. And I watched this movie, man, and the scene with Julie when she's floating out in the yard, and then you
Mm.
hear her singing behind Michael, that broke me. I was like, nope, okay, yeah, it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but we can open the blinds, babe, if you want. I mean, if you're scared, we can. It doesn't bother me, but you know,
Oh, I
and
love
a
that.
big part of that is you and this eerie score that you're bringing. And I'm not trying to downplay anybody. I know how well Marion and everybody did on film. I know Brian is just a monster and a machine. I'm a huge fan of everything he's done as well. So to have all these moving pieces come together, this to me was lightning in a bottle.
Mm.
Um, since then, I haven't seen a movie that's had that type of impact on me and that type of fear instilled in me. So I want to talk a
Mm.
little bit about Vicious, and obviously there's no spoilers here because I haven't seen it either. But what differences was there between the score of Vicious and the score of The Dark and the Wicked, and your approach to Vicious in comparison?
Great question. This, again, with Brian being such a music fan, this one we came from a different lens, which always inspires. And I'm sure you could relate as a creator. It's like I knew that we were coming from a different lens, and this one was the lens of Polly. This was this was more about making the music that's within her head. So
Sure,
this is a really heady experience, but it's also what was fun about it was we started to, in the similar way as with the farm,
hmm,
where we collected sounds that would match that. Instead, this time, everything came down to Polly's experience. So
sure,
it was anything she interacts with in the house, I wanted to include in the score and find a way to make it musical. So wine glasses, cigarettes, things like
mhm,
that. I would just obsess about how can we make this musical? This,
sure,
so cigarette packs became a rhythmic device, and in the same way, exactly,
yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
and so it was having fun like that, thinking, you know, I've battled anxiety on and all, like many people,
mhm,
and being caught in an anxiety spiral is much different than a depressive moment, but there are similarities. That said, I wanted to create that spiral. So, comparing the two movies, one is more about the morning, and this is more about how in a spiral it just keeps adding up,
yeah,
and all of a sudden you're just wishing for an on and off switch, but instead it just keeps compiling.
sure.
So that's where we went with the score, and it's a complete wall of sound.
So I know obviously you worked a lot with Brian when it comes to the score. With this one being more about Polly, did you do any work with Dakota? Did you kind of like do that, or was this all more like were you still on set, kind of working with Dakota and the set, or was this still more of a post type thing?
I would have loved that. This experience was completely different, actually. I didn't work on set, but I did provide a lot of the themes for Brian. I'm not sure if he shared them with Dakota or not, but I wanted to provide Brian with the production, or sorry, the score during filming, so he could
Sure.
understand the rhythm, the pacing, you know. So what's great about working with Brian on and off, and him being such a music fan, our relationship is almost more like bandmates. Brian
Yeah,
is the front man, and I'm there to help bring his vision. So Brian has a very elaborate uh, understanding of what the score is going to be even before I do. And that's really what a gift to have from a director. So
yeah,
he brought me on early on in the project, writing themes to the script. And then he actually was kind enough to have me side by side through all of post-production. So I was on
that's
the
cool.
Paramount lot with the incredible post-production and while they edited it. And when Brian would have an idea, he'd knock on that door. I'd get to work, send it over. They would start editing to it immediately.
That's awesome, man. And like you said, if Paul or John wasn't a part of the Beatles, they wouldn't have been the Beatles. You know, sometimes when you have that collaborative effort, it
Hmm.
really is like, yeah, you have your front man, but he can't play the drums, he can't play the bass, he can't play the guitar, he can't play the keys, he can't do it all. You know, so to
Right.
see, the collaborative effort that you guys have and knowing that one is just as important as the other is very, very important because sometimes even the lack of score at certain points of
Hmm.
a film are very important because that does, especially when you're spiraling and you have that anxiety, that dead quiet when all you have is you and your thoughts. There's nothing
Hmm.
scarier than what I can imagine up here, you know?
That's so accurate. Absolutely. And that was a thing that we would go back to. You know, it's like, actually, this is the spot where the score is better silent. You
Yeah.
know, let's leave it with the creaks. And especially when we're working with incredible sound designers too, you know,
Hmm.
especially in horror.
Yes.
Letting that sound design take the lead here.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you said, walking on that floor. That's something we've all, when we're walking in our floor in the middle of the night and we're scared, we don't hear a score. We hear that creaking. So when
Hmm.
we're watching a movie and we're getting that, we're transported right back to that feeling of when we're anxious in the middle of the night walking. And the
Yeah.
brilliance of, like I said, what you guys are able to do, sometimes it's the decisions you don't make, the scores you don't put in that make a big effort. And that's still you, realizing, hey, right here, it's done. This is where we're going to do this. And obviously you've done a lot of work with horror. Is this your favorite genre to do work for?
Oh yeah. I love it. I can't get enough of it. I have fallen so madly in love with horror, the community. Um, you know, it's all the horror fans like yourself. It's like before this, my anxiety was far too great, so I would stick to the comedies, maybe the drama if I was feeling up for it. And then starting to really fall into the horror world, I also understood that it was more than um, there's more metaphor than I think a lot of people, or at least I gave the horror genre for a while. You know, that it's not just someone hurting someone. This is a
Right.
metaphor for something really great. And those are the horror films that I love.
And like you said, when you have the community and people, it's funny because people outside of the horror community or people that aren't huge horror fans, they think that horror movie fans are just monsters and crazy people. But when you get to meet horror fans, we're probably the most grounded people in the world because we really know the difference between fantasy and reality because we've grown up with this. And this
Mm,
being so important to us. I grew up in a video store, Tom. I was very, very lucky. My mom and dad owned a mom and pop video store.
wow.
And one of the things they were very, very adamant about was that I understood that, horror is not real. It's entertainment, it's fun, it's scary, but, you can't really hurt people. And the education that comes along with horror, I think, makes us more grounded in reality than people that think it's some type of fantastical thing that never get that type of love and treatment and education. So, and here at Sledgehammer Horror, Tom, as you know, the big thing we like to do is my first horror movie, where we talk to people about the first horror movie they watched and what it meant to them.
Hmm.
We were going to make this a whole my first horror movie episode, guys, but I'm going to be completely honest with you. I wanted to talk to Tom about Vicious and the Dark and the Wicked so badly that we made this episode just about the Dark and the Wicked and Vicious. But I do gotta know, man. What do you remember? What your first horror movie was?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The Shining. The Shining, and it's still strangely I got chills saying it right there. But that's a movie that I feel like it's so embedded in my soul. The score, the way, the patience that that film
Oh
had
yeah.
is something that I end up going back to quite often, in
That
my
opening
life.
score is one of the best of all time.
Unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And that was the one that I was trying to, as a fan for your show, I was thinking, I'm like, there could be a first horror. I'm like, which one? And right away I remember, and I was talking to my parents about it, and I'm like, think it was either Shining or The Jaws. And we broke
Oh
it
yeah.
down. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it was The Shining. Um, it's a good question because it does make me think of around that age, I remember even Candyman, the
Oh
original
yeah.
Candyman, that messed me up for a while.
Oh yeah.
But there's just nothing like The Shining.
Well, and you talk about like Bernard Rose, the one that did the score for Candyman. What an amazing score in that film.
So good. Yeah.
Um, I always compare Jaws with Psycho and Halloween because even if you've never seen those movies, you know the score.
That's right.
You know the Halloween piano. You know the Jaws strings. You know the Psycho. Wah, wah, wah. Like you
That's
know
right.
these things, and that to me is how important a score is. People know these scores without having seen. Name one time you've ever gone swimming with your friends and some dickhead didn't go,
That's
but
right.
like that's
Yes.
what we do, man. Like, and that's how important horror is to us, where it
Hmm.
doesn't matter if you're, like I said, if you do score, if you're a costume designer, you could be a fucking key grip for all I care. When you're
That's
a
right.
part of the genre, you are a part of the genre and you are a part of this community forever. So I know I didn't say this at the beginning, guys, but I have all of Tom's links down in the description. I also have the Paramount Plus link for Vicious down in the description as well, guys. So please make sure you're checking it out. Like I said, Tom is a huge inspiration for me. Watching The Dark and the Wicked, a movie that you all know means more than the world to me, and hearing what he was able to do with this fantastic score, I'm over the moon excited for Vicious. So make sure you're checking that out as well. Tom, please don't go any, my friends. I do have a couple more questions for you. Everyone else, if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. It does help build the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Those links are in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.